Hey everyone. So I'm trying something a little bit different with this episode. I kind of had been wanting to do these bonus episodes when I just had something I wanted to talk about that I didn't need to bring on a guest and I could just offload my feelings and maybe give some other people a little bit of a perspective. One funny thing is one of the things that why I started this podcast was because I'm really good at having a conversation with someone. I'm really good at connecting with someone and just bouncing back and forth. I'm not so good, or I'm not yet, anyways. I'm not so good at just talking to myself when no one is there to hear, like right now in this moment when I'm recording this. So I did over the past few days was writing out what I wanted to say, and so I'm going to read what I wrote, but I'm also going to maybe explain or go a little bit deeper. It just helps me stay on track and not lose my thoughts in the middle of all of this. So I wanted to talk about grief and a little bit about how it's felt. Some grief had come up. It was Pride here recently, as I'm recording this in June of 20, or I guess it's July now of 2025. And as much as I love Pride and I love seeing all the people that I met in Toronto and how much fun it is and how much I love to dance, this Pride felt like there was a lot of grief there as well. There was a lot of loss of people that I was bumping into. I was going through some new grief. It just amplified everything of when I saw those people. And I really wanted to put this pain somewhere. Okay, I'm just going to get into this and start reading what I wrote. So here goes. Losing someone in my life never gets easier, whether it's a breakup or the death of someone I love. It's always mixed with my childhood trauma and the real agony of missing someone. It hits this deep place inside me where I start to wonder, am I unlovable? Am I not deserving of... That's the hard thing about grief is that, when someone leaves you or you have a breakup, whether it's with a friend or a lover, it's always hard to separate the real feelings and maybe the logic of why things didn't work out with all of those insecurities that why someone felt they couldn't. And even if that reason is totally legit, it makes sense and it makes sense even for you, your ego starts to question to try to make sense. And a lot of times it can look at why you have shame or why you maybe don't like yourself. And so that's what was coming up a lot for me. I also want to talk about how grief is painful. I mean, it can come in waves and it can be all these different emotions, but it is really painful, like physically painful. I had a partner who passed away from cancer back at the end of 2017. And when he was going into palliative care and he went into the hospital for just because he was in pain, and we took him to the hospital and we thought, we'd been there before so many times, and we just figured, just spend the night in the hospital and he'd be home the following day. Things progressed, and it was looking clear that he was going to have to stay and start palliative care and not come home. I remember the day that I got back to our home and realized he was never coming home. And the reason why this is getting so emotional for me is because I'm dealing with new grief and it's really bringing all this stuff up to the surface. But I want to be vulnerable with this because I want people to understand that it's not about changing this, it's about just really feeling it. But yeah, so when he didn't come home and I knew he wasn't coming home, I was crying and I felt pain. I was in physical pain. There was like my stomach, my chest, everything, my muscles were, I don't know what was going on, but it like physically hurt. And I had never experienced an emotional experience like that. It was painful. Grief is painful. So in this last little while, as I'm going through some new grief, I think I handled it very differently. It hardened me. It made me believe that my vulnerability was a weakness. And I think a part of that was my ego coming in and saying, you're not, you're too much, you're not good enough. Like, you're too emotional. Those things don't matter in relationships. They don't matter. You're not getting further ahead in life. Men don't want that. And so I was really starting to be like, if this is actually not working for me, then I was going to change. I was going to lean more into my masculinity. And I never done this in this way before. I think I work hard and I think I strive for success, and a lot of that I think does come from my masculinity in this way of masking pain. If people don't like me, then I'll just work hard and be really successful. But yeah, so I started leaning into my masculinity. I became angry and resentful. If intimacy wasn't going to bring me peace, then I could be competitive and ruthless. Instead of seeking connection with men, I began to see them as objects to consume. I built up armor around myself in the form of perfection. I leaned into drinking and getting high just to numb the pain. I had been carrying so much anger for the last couple months that all of this stuff just started to, it really was working. I was like, the anger to mask everything else. This idea of saying, okay, fuck you. If you're not going to love me, then what's the point? I'm going to just be angry to deal with all this. It's me against the world kind of thing. And it actually really helped. I was working really hard, but I actually was being so like in my head about just avoiding feeling any of those emotions of pain. And I think the anger, though, had been building up way longer than in just the last couple months. I think it had been going for the last couple of years. So the truth is, my femininity, my emotions, my sensitivity, that's where I feel most at home. It's my ability to feel into my body, to connect, to have passionate sex, to perform, to be present. I feel what others feel. When someone shares their grief or pain with me, I feel it too, because all of that lives inside of me as well. There's something, it's not this like joyful feeling, but I think when someone's in pain and I start to feel that, I feel connected to them. And, a lot of times in my work, I talk about eroticism and this aliveness. Oh my God, grief, being in the throes of grief, especially when it's new and you're in that pain. Oh my God, you feel alive. And so, but there's something about that when I can connect with someone else that makes me feel really alive and makes me realize I'm human, I'm connected to someone. And it's really beautiful. I mean, so many times with my partner, even when he passed away, there was so much like honesty and truth because people were in so much pain. And I saw these men that before were pretty closed off, wouldn't be able to talk about things, could no longer hold that back because this loss was right in front of us. And honestly, though, it was so meaningful and beautiful because I was able to connect so easily to everyone around me because I was able to see we're feeling the same thing. And it's just something that's really special and amazing about that I think is actually really important to our relationships, being able to do that. So so the other thing that happened this week that I think really, or I guess it would have been last week, is Lorde's new album came out, and I had heard the song What Was That back in, I think, April when it happened, and I was kind of this new grief I was experiencing it, and I just remember thinking that song, the lyrics were so, it was poetry, beautiful words, but there was such this simplicity of, when she says, I'm missing you, yeah, I'm missing you, like, just those words. It doesn't have to be more than that to like hit you of like, oh my God, that's what I'm feeling. But when the new album came out, the song Shapeshifter was on the album, and oh my God, that broke me open. This idea of constantly shifting roles just to be loved. Like, if I'm this, then I'll be loved. And then, okay, well, that's not good enough. So maybe I'll become this. Maybe I should change this about myself. And kind of always fitting myself into these places that were never working out anyways. Okay, I'll be hyper masculine. Oh, that's not good enough. And then, okay, well, I'm too feminine sometimes. So that's not good enough either. And it just was making me realize that I've never felt like enough, but it was because I was really changing who I am. In that song Shapeshifter, the one verse says, everyone that I've slept with, all the metal that I messaged, if I'm fine without it, why can't I stop? Everything I want speeding up my pulse. I don't sleep, don't dream at all. Give 'em nothing personal, so I'm not affected. And I just thought about how much the metal that we message is everything on our phone. This intimacy that we we do looking on a screen, sitting on the couch, which can be valid of meeting people. But why do I continue to meet people when I keep saying to myself that I'm not affected by all this? Well, fuck everyone then. If you don't love me, then I'm just going to become amazing. I'm going to work really hard and become successful. Give them nothing personal. I really closed up that vulnerability for the last little while, and it was so that I wouldn't be affected. There's this note she hits with her voice and at the end of the song, and it just sounds like pure anguish. And I remember listening to it the first time, and when I heard it, I felt it. Like, I still feel it every time I hear that song, but I think it just broke me because that anguish that I was feeling, that grief that I was feeling, that I needed to get out, and hearing that it was empathy. It physically hurt. It was the same thing of what I was saying about how when people are hurting and you're hurting with them, there's this really meaningful connection. And it was like crying with a friend for the first time in like couple months or since April or whatever, and it was like someone said it's okay to feel these things and to feel the pain that's been there. And I think that pain that has always been there, the grief that has always been there for me, has been this longing to be understood for who I am. The feeling of being abandoned because I don't fit neatly into this binary of masculinity. How many people and even friends, especially men, like friends, I've had friends who have just stopped talking to me, and friends that I've experienced really deep experiences with and showed up for, but that was too much to keep going. And I know it's nothing personal, but like that pain is still there because feeling like, oh, so all these emotions and feelings, that's too much. You'd rather go back into a place where we don't talk about that stuff. And I think sometimes it feels like all I want is a hug. Just something to show that someone cares. Like, nobody has to fix it. No one has to make me feel better. I just want to feel like someone is here with me. Like, that was the thing with Lorde's whole album. It's so raw and honest. It doesn't offer solutions. It just validates the pain, the longing, the mess of it all. It's one of the reasons why I always love Fred again. The DJ, if you don't know him, but these words so simple of just saying, I'm in pain. I'm really sad. I really miss you. I'm struggling. And instead of someone trying to tell me what I need to do to fix it, to just let me feel that, and like, I've had a few breakups with friends and lovers, and the pain never truly disappears. My partner, that pain can still come up, missing him. Obviously, talking about him still is a little bit difficult. And I think time can make that pain less frequent. But what I noticed, especially over Pride, was that, seeing some of these people, it still feels like a punch in the gut. It still hurts, and I think part of that is never really getting the closure or understanding why people left my life, but it still hurts. And maybe it doesn't hurt as much as when that loss first happened, but it still hurts. And I think that you live with grief. It stays with you always. And I think in those times that when it hits you, like maybe when I was seeing those people and it felt painful, I know that's going to happen less, but I also see the power in having that, my God, having a partner that died of cancer. When people tell me about grief of death, I feel like I can support them and connect with them. I feel like I can share my story with them to empathize. And if anything, it just makes them feel a little bit more seen. And to me, that's a gift. The last week that I was in a lot of pain. And I was alone a lot dealing with this. And I think for the first few days, I felt like I just had to feel it. And I knew it was pain triggered by the latest loss in my life, but also it was every loss that I think I never really felt or moved through. Like, there was moments I had to lay on the floor. It's also a somatic practice to lay on like a hard floor to ground yourself and to ground your nervous system, because I think my head was spinning and I was going into all these places of a lot of anxiety of trying to figure out why I lost someone again. And I really just had to keep coming back through feeling those emotions. But holy fuck, it was really hard. And I really had to try not to numb myself out with it. The thing about me is that I'm a highly emotional, sensitive person. I feel my feelings always. It's one of the reasons why I struggle with drinking and drugs is because sometimes they're too strong that I need to numb that stuff out. And I think a lot of people don't know how to handle this grief that I have and this pain that I have. And, I think I was starting to not trust people. And I think that was part of the resentment, is that I was starting to not trust that people would be able to have the capacity to be there for me. And so I just stopped. And yeah, I just stopped because I didn't want to be disappointed. I think it was good to sit in that pain, but I realized too that I really want to start being more vulnerable. But it's really scary, and it's really scary when you've had a lot of disappointment with being vulnerable with people. This is scary for me to do right now, and this is something that talking about this is and on it, the reason why I've been wanting to do it is all week is I needed to put this pain somewhere. I needed to express it somewhere, and I think it was important. And I see a lot of times with clients that I work with, there's so much grief with queer people. There's grief over maybe childhoods filled with shame. There's grief over losing out on our youth if we came out later in life. There's grief over maybe never being seen because we were too scared to. I get a lot of times I have clients who are wanting to find intimacy and connection and better sex now in their life, and maybe they're, middle-aged or older, and they always say, I wish I would have started this sooner. And originally I would want to say to them, you're doing it now. Like, what's important is that you're doing it now. And what I've realized is I have to sit with them in that grief, because that grief is really valid and real. And if we can feel that grief, feel those feelings, release some of that from our bodies, and maybe I can empathize with them, we can then start to feel like we can connect and enjoy those other things. The grief is there though, and I don't know if it truly goes away. I also think it's an amazing tool to be able to feel that and to be able to use that to have intimacy with other people, and to maybe just let down some of all of this bullshit that we do, especially as gay men. All that stuff I said that I was doing the last little while of like all this armor of working hard, being successful, looking amazing, having everyone like you, being popular. Like, it's none of that is, that's not intimacy. Intimacy is this really scary, painful, vulnerable, authentic parts of yourself. I'm going to end this here. Please send me a message on my Instagram or wherever you can if you want to say what this has meant to you, maybe talk a bit about your grief. And thank you for listening. I think this is, my first time doing something like this, and I'm definitely going to try to do more when these things come up that I want to talk about. But thank you for listening.